Hi, my name is Joey Strauss, and I'll be telling you about my English 101 research paper on the ones who walk away from Omelas by Ursula Le Guin and its relation to schadenfreude. So, I'd like to first start off by defining these two terms. So, the first one I want to tell you about is schadenfreude. It's a very important word for my topic. So, schadenfreude is obviously not of English origin, it's of German origin. And it comes from the word schaden, which means harm or damage, and fried, which means joy or happiness. So when you put those together, you get schadenfreude, which means finding pain in someone else's unfortunate situation or misfortune. And the second word I'd like to define is the exact opposite of it. It is mudita, and it means finding joy in another person's happiness or joy or for another person's fortune. Now, just a quick review on the ones who walk away from Omelas. It is a seemingly perfect town with all happy people, and they are having a festival with kids riding horses and people just enjoying the festivities of the summer. And they all seem to be having a perfect time, and there's nothing that seems to be going wrong. But the one secret about this town is that they have one suffering child, or one unfortunate person that is constantly suffering. And everyone knows that this person exists, and they choose to either deal with it and live in that town of Omelas and have that knowledge that there's one person suffering for the sake of everyone else's joy, or they choose to leave and walk away from Omelas, hence the title. The thesis for my paper was the short story The Ones Who Walk Away from Omelas by Ursula Le Guin claims that the misfortune and suffering of others is an essential part of bringing happiness, and she does this through showing contemporary sciences and relations to it, and the emotions that the ones who walk away from Omelas feel, and also the individual moral decisions that the town people must go through when discovering the existence of the suffering child. Ursula Le Guin was able to show that schadenfreude is a necessity for some people to feel joy for themselves by using real-life context and science. In the psychology department at the City University of New York, they conducted research on relations of attachment, competition, cooperation, and schadenfreude. In this study, they did surveys and short questionnaires and put people in situations where they would feel emotions, and they would measure these and quantify them and find the relations between empathy, sympathy, and schadenfreude to see how many people and what kind of people need schadenfreude to feel joy. Something that modern psychologists have always been fascinated with are mirror neurons. Mirror neurons are the part of the brain that fire off electrical currents that cause people to feel what someone else is feeling just by their physical senses of sight and hearing. So when you see somebody, for example, if you hit someone in the ankle with a scooter, you could not feel the exact pain, but you could definitely understand. And sometimes some people even feel that pain in their own. Another study showed that mirror neurons could potentially get neutralized if they are raised from a young age in a manner that did not show emotions regarding other people's situations. Now, this is something that has happened in the town of Omelas. You can see, as Ursula Le Guin wrote, they peered at it with frightened, disgusted eyes, referring to the child. And they also said, they all know that it has to be there. And the reason it has to be there is because they're all aware that it needs to be there for them to feel joy. These things factor into making a strong argument for Ursula Le Guin claiming that schadenfreude is a necessity for some people to feel joy. Another strong point for Ursula Le Guin's argument is that the people who walk away from Omelas are not happy. When these people choose to walk away from Omelas, instead of staying and living with the fact that there is someone suffering for everyone else's joy, they do not find the immediate happiness that everyone else is left with. So they give up the necessity of having that child suffer for everyone else's joy in an attempt to find somewhere else. Now, finding joy somewhere else for these people is not a guarantee. As a matter of fact, they may come to regret the decision, and although we don't find out, they may even return to the town of Omelas, looking for that joy again. This gives a sense of urgency and necessity for schadenfreude to happen. When the people of Omelas learn about the darker side of the town, they make that decision. And whether they choose to stay or leave, it supports the idea that schadenfreude is essential for people to feel happiness. The importance of the suffering child is central to the townspeople's happiness in showing that it is not as if the people of the town of Omelas do not know right from wrong based on regular social norms. When they are first faced with a problem, they suffer and grieve for weeks or maybe days on what they should do about the situation. And as you see in the story, most people come to terms with it and live in the town of Omelas, feeling the joy. If your enemy, or someone you do not like so much, were to have an unfortunate situation that wasn't so unfortunate that would put any danger to their life, most people would tend to feel happiness, whether it is ethically right or not. And when they recognize this, they think within themselves, this isn't a good thing. But even if they recognize it as a bad thing, it is joy that they still feel nonetheless. Josh Kaufman, a renowned author, said regarding schadenfreude and mudita that schadenfreude is an easy-to-feel emotion, while mudita is a difficult-to-feel emotion. Now these things are something to keep in mind for I think all people, as schadenfreude is not desirable in a way of feeling happiness, although it could be a necessity. Mudita, finding joy in other people's fortune, would yield a greater amount of happiness. But there's just generally less mudita in this world, thanks to all the negative news and media that we find. You're listening to my presentation, and I hope you were able to reflect on the necessity of schadenfreude and how we could possibly replace it with mudita.